Hello, welcome to our PHP tutorials. So today we are going to get into the PHP language learning. So we're going to do some programming and see how PHP works. So what you see here is a PHP file. It's called test.php, and I have this file. I'm using a text editor. This is the text editor called Aptana, which I have given you the link on my one of my videos. So anyway, if you are using the Aptana, I will have another tutorial just for how to use Aptana more efficiently. But let's get into the programming part of PHP now. So this is, let's say, what you're looking here is a PHP file which has HTML programs or HTML codes and also embedded PHP code. So if you get rid of these lines, this is an HTML. Now even if it's called test.php, so when your browser, if you remember in my how PHP works video, if you send a test PHP to the browser without even any PHP code, it still works. So let's say let's see this URL, and so you see here is my PHP test.php code, and even though it doesn't have any PHP, but it still works. The reason it works is because when this test.php goes to the web server, it looks at it, it doesn't see any PHP code, it just sends back whatever HTML it receives back to the browser, and browser displays. So if you say modified, so now let's embed PHP code. So let's just for the so what will happen if I do PHP like this? Okay, so this is a valid PHP code, echo test, right? Now, any guess what will happen? Okay, echo test. So what is it saying is it's simply returning, it's treating it as a simple HTML, because when it goes to the web server, the Apache doesn't have any way, or web server doesn't have any way to know this is a PHP code. So now we will embed the PHP code. Now one thing I must mention, as you see, I have a file called test.php. Now some web server, depending on how you are set up, if you're running locally, you can set it up the way you want. But some web servers, they allow you to run PHP code even if the file name is HTML. So you can have this file called as test.html, and can as well still embed the PHP code and make it work. In the particular setup I'm using, my ISP, where this page is hosted, they don't allow. So I have to specifically name the PHP page as .php. Any page which has PHP, it has to be named as .php. So just to make it clear, for this type, you can have an HTML has embedded PHP code, or you can have a PHP which has embedded HTML code. So it works both way. Now, any PHP file has to have, even if it is called .php, you have to have this less than question mark / PHP start with. So let's say if it is a pure PHP file. Okay, let's first test it instead of getting into too much detail. So let's say if we say echo test. So now, let's run some test equal to welcome. So this is, and we are echoing the test. I think this is very simple. Hope you understand it. So what we are doing here is that we're setting up the test string and set it up assigned to the string called welcome, and we're printing that variable test. As you see here, we have welcome. So that means your PHP code did get executed. So what happened really this time is that it went to the web server. Web server identified that as PHP code, and it uses the PHP process which is running to really execute this statement. So now, if this had been just like a HTML, so let's say you can do this. So we are getting rid of, and here also you can put so the reason I'm showing is, even though you should not build your HTML or web page like that, but I just want to show it to you what are the different variations what you can do. So echo, this is HTML. Let's put a P. Okay, so let's run it again. So this is HTML, this is PHP. Now you can move this one instead of doing this. The correct way of doing it is this. So your HTML and your PHP is really separate, and then you put HTML. As you see, as soon as I type HTML, the closing tag automatically comes because the editor is smart enough to know this. So is it? I hope this is pretty clear. So how we are embedding HTML code with PHP. So now let's say how would your error show up? Let's say we do an error, what we call okay. So we have an error. Let's see how the error shows here. Okay, so this is where this error is coming from. Is this PHP code is trying to get executed within the web server, and Apache, which is the web server I'm using, it's trying to execute the PHP code, and it is running into issues. So that's why it's giving this error. This error is directly coming from the PHP error. What is interesting to note is that even your HTML didn't get printed. Is because it is returning an error, and it is giving back the entire string. Now depending on what type of error you have, it could be different. So in this particular case, because we had a error because it couldn't recognize the function. But let's say, what about this ones? So we have the function call, it should be fine, but we have a variable which doesn't exist because it's test1. Let's see what happens. So as you see, it did not really give an error. The reason is that the PHP by default initializes. So that means when you do echo test1, it's basically, it has already initialized the variable, and test1 is pretty much blank, so it's not printing anything. In some other languages, some other compilers, you may have errors like, or test1 is not defined or something. So I think hopefully this gives you a good idea of how PHP works and what are the different techniques. So some other things which you may want to talk about is this is the way commenting. So this is a comment. There are other ways to comment also. If you have to type few lines, this is comment. So it's a good practice to have star every line, but you may not need it. So you can just, as long as you do this, it's fine. So from next tutorial onwards, we'll take some more advanced examples, but hopefully this gives you a good start. Thank you.